Before we begin today's episode, I would like to thank our patrons. So, major thank you to Dustin Miller, Dave Jackson, Ryan from Listoff, Poppy the Keaton, Eric Guess, Chris Copleen, Charlie Young, Colby Moyer, Cody Dawson, Nikolai at Night, Chris from A Novel Console, Alex from Low 5 Gaming, Backlog Adam, JD, Adam from Revival and Extinction, Mike Gilmer, and Orden Wells. If you want to be like these fine folks, you can head on over to patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. We have a few tiers to choose from, and each one gets you your own benefits, such as bonus episodes, the ability to decide on what those bonus episodes are, our schedule in advance, and more. It's never expected, but it is always appreciated. So once again, that's patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. Thanks, everybody. Now let's begin Mario Month. Waha! There's a reason they didn't pick me to fill in for Charles Martinet. On with the show. Welcome back to Pixel Project Radio, the video game discussions podcast where we do deep dives and analyze all of our favorite games and some of yours too. My name is Rick, I am your host, and today we are taking a look at the full catalog of Super Mario Land. That's number 1, that's number 2, and if you can believe it, it's number 3. Stick around, as always, to the end of the episode if you want to hear more about where you can find us on the internet. You can hear all about our social medias, the Instagrams, Twitters, Blue Skies, YouTubes, Discords. Did I say Discords already? So nice, I always say it twice. And etc. Man, I'm on a roll today.
That's pretty good.
I've got some energy. And that lovely mellifluous voice that you just heard is from my guest today. He is one of the co-hosts of the Fine Time podcast, a sort of video game and pop culture variety show. That's a lot of fun. This is my friend, Andre, or Dre. What's up, man? Thanks for joining me today.
Andre or Dre if you're nasty. Yeah, I'm glad to be here finally on the PPR. Do people say PPR to you? Because I like to say PPR.
Nobody's ever said it to me. Nobody's ever talked about this podcast to me in person, which is maybe for the best, you know?
Yeah, I like the PPR, so I'm gonna call it that.
You know, everybody says that the best banter comes out in the green room, and that is no different than today. I hope you don't mind me saying this. I didn't really plan this, but we were just shooting the shit before this episode started, and I found out that Dre can't burp.
No, I cannot burp. I very occasionally, it happens like once every 2-3 years by accident, and it surprises the hell out of me. What the hell just happened? But otherwise, no. I could like try to burp. I could like do all the things, chug some soda or whatever. It sounds like so much fun. It seems like so much fun. Everyone has a lot of fun burping, and it's funny. I cannot do it.
Oh, dude, you're missing out. It's a blast, dude. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it just, like I've seen the things before of like, you burp something alcoholic and it makes the flame go whoosh or something. I mean, like I want to do that. I would like to have that in my life, but I guess I'm destined not to, but it's okay.
You'll never be a competitive chugger like Badlands Chugs, you know?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I can't watch any food contest. I cannot. It makes me feel a certain way.
All right, folks, that's been our talk for today. Tune in next time when we come back and we talk all about current events. Politics, we've got them.
No one's ever done that before.
Today we are talking about all of the Super Mario Land games. That's Super Mario Land 1, 2, and 3. We decided to package them up because, each one on its own would be tough to stretch out a full episode on. But I really wanted to talk about them because I grew up playing these games. They were some of the first games I ever played. And revisiting them, spoiler alert, they're still a lot of fun.
For sure.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into it, just a quick note on the community forum. Yeah, those cheers are back, baby. We're going to do each one before each game because it just kind of makes sense that way, So Dre, what's your history with these games? Did you play each of them when they first came out, or did you just discover these recently?
No, I played them as they came out. I think I got a Game Boy in 91. I want to say that sounds correct. 91. And I'm pretty sure it came with Tetris. I don't think it came with Super Mario Land, so I must have got Super Mario Land along with it or whatever. And so just a couple years after the Game Boy came, because it came out in '89, so the Game Boy wasn't too old at this point. And I remember getting Super Mario Land 2 Six Golden Coins more when it was new. So because I remember playing that. That was like my bus game, City Bus. Because so I guess maybe you don't know this about me. I was like homeschooled from like the middle of sixth grade onwards. So I had to take like the actual, not like a school bus, but like the city bus to like go to like the homeschooling center and turn in some work and get new work. And, because that's how it worked in San Diego. So as I was doing that, I remember playing Super Mario Land 2 a lot on the bus. That was like my bus game. You ever have one of those you remember as like I played this in the car a lot, or like one of those things? Super Mario Land 2 is one of those for me. As for Wario Land, this is actually my first real playthrough of it. So that one is new to me. But Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2 old standbys.
Okay, cool. I know exactly what you mean by bus games. It was Pokemon for us because like it released right when we were in the pocket for it, like as grade schoolers, young grade schoolers. But shortly thereafter, it kind of went into CD players and MP3 players. You got to be cool, right? On the school bus.
Yeah, of course, got to be cool.
Gotta be cool. That's the number one rule.
If you don't have a Walkman, like why are you even getting on the bus? I mean, Jesus Christ. Well, that was in my day. I don't know. You probably had a Discman by then.
Oh, for us it was Zune, iPod Touch. Before the Zune and the iPod, I had a mini disc player. That was a lot of fun.
Ooh, I had one of those. I loved that thing. It was so good.
As for me, I had each of these as a kid growing up, but the first one that I actually played was Wario Land. I don't know why. I was drawn to that one first. I actively, for a little bit, actually disliked Super Mario Land 1 because partly because I thought it looked really weird, and partly because actually my aunt was a big fan of playing it. That was like the only game she played on her DMG Game Boy. But I played Wario Land first, which is Super Mario Land 3, and then Super Mario Land 2 kind of in tandem with it. But we'll get into all of that as we go on. A lot of fun games, and we're going to start with the first one. So let's hear a little bit of music from Super Mario Land 1. Do you have any opening thoughts about this one? Like, what are your general feelings about this game, Dre?
The way I think about it is that since it's a launch game for the Game Boy, right? I always think of Super Mario Land as proof of concept. At least it was for me as a kid, because I remember when the Game Boy was coming out and I was seeing it in Nintendo Power and stuff, I'm like, is this really gonna work? Like, because the only handheld things I really had at that point were like the LCD shit, like the Tiger Electronics and like stuff like that. I think you know the type of thing I mean, or a Game and Watch, maybe people know better. And I was just like, is that really gonna is this gonna be a real Mario game on a real system? Yeah, actually, yeah, it's a real Mario game. And so that's kind of what I think of Super Mario Land as, is just like, because we think of like later stuff of launch games like Luigi's Mansion or whatever as like tech demos. You could almost say Super Mario Land is as well. I mean, it's a great game in its own right. I'm not just saying it was something for the time to look at, but yeah, I think that's how I think of Super Mario Land, as like, no, this is real. This is going to be a real system with real games.
I know exactly what you mean. In some ways, it really does feel like a proof of concept. It's taking Super Mario Brothers, which was very popular at the time, and it's distilling it onto this new hardware. You had mentioned a few times, just in passing, that this was kind of a, I don't remember if you said system seller or what, but it was originally going to be the system tie-in before they settled on Tetris, thinking that that would just have more international pull. But they deliberately designed this game to sort of show off what the Game Boy, the original Game Boy DMG, could do at the time. And the result isn't quite Super Mario Brothers, but it's close enough. But the interesting thing is, and we'll get into this in a moment, Shigeru Miyamoto was not involved, and as such, there are some creative ideas going on. But before we get too into the weeds, I wanted to hear from our community, from the community forum, to be exact. We got a little bit of responses for these games, and Mario 1 got 2 of them. So let's hear. First, community regular Chris Copeland from the Retro Hangover podcast. Shout out to Chris. Here's what he has to say. Oh, yeah, dude. Absolutely. I love Retro Hangover. I'm really at the time of recording, I'm preparing to go on there for the first time to talk about a game that I adore, but I can't spoil
That's
it.
awesome. That's cool.
Here's what Chris has to say. Mario Land is an example of what you get when you are just trying to add some legitimacy to a new console with the biggest brand name in gaming, but don't have the people that made that series involved. Sure, there was talent. Gunpei Yokoi and R&D 1 weren't exactly slouches.
No way. No.
But it feels incredibly foreign and alien, a mimicry of the series it labels itself as. It's not like the game is bad, but it doesn't feel like Mario. To give all credit where credit is due, the music is really good, and it was an original game instead of a hasty port of an NES game, something too common for the Game Boy. But it feels like its own IP, something entirely separate, and that's what makes it awkward and off-putting. Yeah, I don't know that I would go that far, but I do generally agree with him.
Yeah, I think I generally agree as well. I mean, he's right. I mean, the talent behind this game, obviously, Gunpei Yokoi and then Hirokazu Tanaka or Hip Tanaka on the music. I mean, we might get to that in a bit, but just you have powerhouses at Nintendo behind this. And yeah, they're just doing, hey, I guess we'll just make a Mario game like this. You know what else I think is interesting, and I didn't really think about this, obviously, back then, but I think about it now? As we all know, in Japan, Mario 3 came out in, October 88. We didn't get it till, February 90. So, in Japan, this comes out after Mario 3, but here, this comes out before Mario 3. I feel like that has a little bit of a, I don't know if I have the words for it, but I think the way it's perceived here, I'm not saying it's perceived differently in Japan than it is here necessarily. Not that I would even know that it is, but I think it lends it something. You know what I mean? Coming out before that game, I think here in America.
Are you sure about that? I think it came out in '89 in both Japan and North America.
I promise I can't. Mario 3 came out February. It didn't come out till 90, for sure. I can tell you that for sure. The Game Boy came out in 89, so...
Wait, I think I might have just misheard you, actually.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it lends it something, whereas maybe if it came out after Mario 3 here, in Japan, it might be I just remember, I guess what I'm trying to say is I remember Mario Land being received really well. I remember kids on the school bus when the Game Boy came out, the cool kids in the back who, you weren't allowed to have a Game Boy, but I'd go sneak back there and look at it, be like, wow, this is a real ass Mario game. For sure.
Yeah. I didn't know anybody else that played this other than my cousins and my aunt, but that's cool to hear from somebody, because I was much younger. I wasn't even alive when this game came out, but as it's true. But as a kid, by the time my general age group had Game Boys, it was Pokemon fever. So stuff like this was definitely fallen by the wayside. We do have one more piece of correspondence, and this comes from Discord regular 78. Here's what he has to say. My parents didn't let me have a Game Boy growing up because they correctly presumed I would spend all my time playing it. They stuck to consoles so they could, in theory, monitor my playtime. As a result, I could only play Game Boy when I went to my cousin's place. I could never get very far, which I will attribute to anything other than me being bad. but I still played it as much as I possibly could every time I went. At least until they got a SNES and I played Super Mario World for the first time, but that's another story. This son of a gun is segueing on my podcast.
Yeah, he knows you like the segues. I mean, we all know that. If you listen to the PPR, you're all about the segs, and it's just, he's trying to help you out. It's weird how everyone has these not weird, I guess, but like just interesting that everyone has these very specific memories of Super Mario Land because it is so different. It definitely makes an impression, whether that's a good one or a bad one.
Very, very true. And let's dive into why that was. As we sort of alluded to, this was developed by Nintendo R&D 1, very famous group of individuals, published by Nintendo, obviously. The director on this one was Satoru Okada and produced by the developer of the original D-pad and one of the original creators of the Game Boy, Gunpei Yokoi. Very famous man. The composer here, as you had mentioned, Dre, is Hirokazu Hip Tanaka, who also has credits on Metroid, Kid Icarus, Mother, and Earthbound.
Yes, he does. And all those like very early, like all the jingles on the light gun games, Hogan's Alley, Duck Hunt, Gyromite, I guess it's not a light gun game, but like Gumshoe, all those are Hip Tanaka. Like they live in everyone's head forever if you've ever heard them. So he's just an absolute legend. Dr. Mario as well, too, I think. Dr. Mario.
Yes, you are right. I forgot to write that down, but that is true.
Yeah.
Notably, if you're following along, you'll notice that Shigeru Miyamoto was not involved. At this time, he was busy working on Super Mario World and A Link to the Past. So he was a little bit busy, so he pushed this onto the R&D team to make something that would show off the Game Boy. They did ultimately decide to go with Tetris as a tie-in because they thought it would have more international acclaim. And honestly, they were right. But this was designed to take advantage of how they could utilize the Game Boy's architecture at the time. Just to get a couple of more stats out of the way, this launched in April of 89 in Japan, July of 89 here in North America, September of 90 in the EU, and Australia bringing up the rear at November of 90.
Yeah, just what a wild time, man. I never really thought about this before, but I mean, Nintendo launching the Game Boy, 89 going into 90 when they're at, I mean, it's weird to say peak of their powers because they've been at the peak of their powers like 5 times in our lifetime, right? But like at this point, Nintendo was synonymous with video games and they're just putting out this new thing. And it's just, man, they could do no wrong at that point.
Right, you are. And I want to go back to something that Chris mentioned in his community correspondence. This ultimately feels, while it is a valiant attempt, and I think for the time, a good one at that, it feels very much like a compressed NES Super Mario Brothers game. We're going to get into the gameplay specifics here and how it's different here in just a sec. But I mean, overall, if you play this, I think the first thing many people will notice outside of just the color palette is the landscape is totally different, and the physics and how Mario moves feels very different from Super Mario Brothers. And I made it a point to play through Super Mario Brothers and all of Lost Levels, God help my soul, before I played through this. Oh, dude, Lost Levels changes a man. Never again.
Sure does.
But,
yeah.
But I will say, like, those feel significantly better to play. The physics here, Mario is not, he stops on a dime, practically. And if you're only used to the NES Mario games, that's going to feel very foreign to you.
Yeah, I mean, every Mario game does have its own physics, right? Except the new Mario Brothers series, which uses all the same ones. But like, so there is something to always get used to. But yeah, trying to ape the original Super Mario Brothers, and that game has its own brand of very specific inertia, right? And then this one is not that at all, even though you might expect it to be because it's trying to look like that, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like that. I don't know if it would agree that it's bad. I know you didn't necessarily say it's bad. I just don't. I think it's fine. It's something to get used to. I just like any other Mario game. It's very particular though. The stopping on a dime is weird though, because like you said, the inertia of sliding a bit or running around. Oops, am I going to fall off that edge? That will not happen to you in Mario Land. It's very sticky.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. And just to sort of clarify upon myself, which is something you never want to do in public, I don't think this is a bad game. I think this is a good game. But, in 2024, in the age of handheld emulators, if you ask me, would I rather replay this or the original Super Mario Brothers? I'm going to go Super Mario every time,
Of course. Well, yeah, we're removed from the fact that you have Mario in your pocket or whatever. That's not really a novelty anymore, the way you're playing this game today. So, yeah.
No, I'm just happy to see you. Mario's in my other pants pockets.
Oh, Daisy is not in another castle. Oops, sorry. Daisy is in this game. Did I spoil it for everybody? The introduction of Daisy?
It's very cool. This series introduces a lot of, well, not a lot, but a couple of firsts, and we'll get there in time. But since we're already on the gameplay, let's talk a little bit about it. We mentioned the physics, which will take some getting used to. But in addition to that, there is a prominent extra aspect, almost a genre differential in this game. There are shoot 'em up segments here that take place in airplanes and submarines. And I didn't verify this from an official source, but I have heard that shoot 'em up segments were actually planned for the original Super Mario Brothers, but just because the controls couldn't get quite right at the time, they decided to scrap it. But it does make things very interesting. I mean, you're in submarines and you're in airplanes. Even for a few boss battles, it's going to be shoot 'em ups. And, I never expected that.
That is a really great aspect of this game. And again, this isn't something I really thought too deeply of at the time, but now going back, because these are the first times, I should say this too, these are the first times I've played these games since they were out. Since I mentioned I played them in the early 90s. I have never played them again. Not on Virtual Console 3DS, not on emulator, not on anything. It was first time for this. So this was a real trip for me to go back to these. And yeah, that did stick out to me. And I did remember that this game did have shmup levels, but I just wasn't prepared for how bizarre it would feel, because back then it wasn't too weird for games to have random shmup levels where I'm trying to think of NES games like Air Fortress or Xexes, or there's a lot of games that just here, the Guardian Legend, there's just, here's a shmup part, okay, cool. So Super Mario Land doing that as well wasn't too weird, but now looking back on it, it's deeply strange.
It is strange, but I like you. I quite enjoyed these. I thought they were pretty refreshing. There's not too many of them. Not so much that it would ever really make you think this is a different IP with respect to what Chris had said. But I mean, they're fun. I thought some of them were a little annoying. There's the final boss in particular is a shoot 'em up, and it can be a little difficult, but it was a nice change of pace.
I'm a shmup that I grew up in the arcades playing all these kind of games. So that the Mario Land didn't break a sweat for me even at the time. But yeah, I could understand if you don't really play that genre, this might be a problem for you. So I understand that. And yeah, just what you just said, the last boss is a shmup level. Would they ever allow that? I mean, Kirby does that sometimes, right? But that's Kirby. I can't imagine the next Mario and Switch 2 being well, here's your Star Fox level to beat the game. Okay, weird, but I like it. I definitely did like these shmup levels at the time and now. I think I like them even more now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't remember how I felt about them as a kid, to be quite honest, but in fact, I don't think I ever beat this as a kid, now that I'm thinking about it.
Interesting.
There are other ways this game differs from Super Mario Brothers. I had kind of alluded to this, but because of the color palette of the screen, it's largely green and blacks, you're not going to be able to see colors like on the NES. So how they compensated for this is they kept the mushroom as normal, right? Mushrooms and coins are still in here, but they changed the 1-up mushroom to a heart. That's how you get 1-ups in this game. You'll find little hearts. Not a huge deal. The general setting is in a whole new land, and I'm going to read from the manual here in just a minute to talk about the setting of this game. But there are several gameplay changes as well. When it comes to Mario, instead of getting a fire flower, you get a bouncy ball upgrade.
I think it is officially called the Super Ball, if I'm not told. And I only know that because it's in Super Mario Maker 2. I'm pretty sure it's a Super Ball.
It is. He is officially referred to as a Super Ball Mario. But what's cool about these things is they ricochet. So if you are standing on the ground and you use one, it's going to ricochet off and it's going to bounce around. These can hit enemies, they can hit coins, and they will grab the coins for you, and they disappear after a few seconds. But it's super, it's kind of neat. You know, it's a neat little change up, and, you know, it actually makes certain areas in this game a lot easier.
Yeah, it's an interesting power up, mainly because the first time you use it, you think you're going to shoot a fireball, and then this thing just flies diagonally up into the air immediately, and you're like, "What the fuck was that? Like, is that even like what?" you know? But it's like, oh wait, it bounces on stuff. So I didn't really know about this power up before I played the game, and yeah, I mean, just I like the way it's utilized in the game as well, because Nintendo doesn't just do, power-ups just for a power-up. The utility of it too. Oh, bouncing around in here to get a bunch of coins, right? That you couldn't access normally, or stuff like that. I think is very neat.
Yeah. The Invincible Star is still here. That functions basically exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other interesting changes here are within the enemies. A lot of these enemies are going to be sort of unique to this world, but a few of them do come back in forms here from Super Mario Brothers, such as the Goombas, the Piranha Plants, and the Koopas. Well, actually, according to the manual, they all use their Japanese names.
Really?
Yeah, so instead of Piranha Plant, for example, you get Pakkun Flower. Instead of Koopa Troopa, you get Nokubon. And then there's some other enemies like that all use Japanese names, like Torlin and Chicken.
I did not know that. I didn't remember that anyway from just reading the manual of Super Mario Land back then. I mean, obviously, I haven't looked at that since I was a kid. So wow, that's pretty fascinating that they did that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I think so.
In terms of hard gameplay, that's about where the differences end. You're still going to be able to jump onto enemies. You're still going to be able to jump into blocks to break them or get some coins. You can still run by holding B, things of that nature. These are the main changes that are found in this game. And I think that was largely because it was just a new team. They wanted to be a little creative. They wanted to stand out a bit. And, for better or for worse, I think they accomplished that. Oh, sorry, I did forget something. I'm looking at the Koopa here now. Koopas in this game, if you jump on them, they don't turn into shells. They turn into bombs, which then detonate, and they can hurt you.
It's so weird. I love when Nintendo does stuff like that. They subvert your expectations. It's like, oh, I know what this turtle's going to do. Oh, wait, no, I don't. They're so good at that. And I think Mario World does a lot of that too, because not a whole lot in that game behaves like you might think. I mean, that was the first one where, you hop on a Koopa Troopa and a shell goes sliding off, and the Koopa Troopa is just sitting there in his skivvies, and it's like, whoa, what? I love that they always find new things to do somehow, and that was one of those new things in Mario Land, that it just explodes. And yeah, it got me the first time. It definitely got me.
Oh, it gets all of us. So we should talk about the setting of this game, because that is very different from Super Mario Brothers 2.
Mm-hmm.
2 as in TOO. So I'm just going to read what the instruction manual tells you.
Okay.
Let's set the stage. Once upon a time, there was a peaceful world called Sarasa Land. In this world, there were 4 kingdoms named Virabuto, Muda, Easton, and Chai. One day, the skies of Sarasa Land were suddenly covered by a huge black cloud. From a crack in this cloud, the unknown space monster Tatanga emerged to try to conquer Sarasa Land. Tatanga hypnotized the people of all the kingdoms so that he could control them in any way he liked. In this way, he took over Sarasa Land. Now he wants to marry Princess Daisy of Sarasa Land and make her his queen. It goes on a little bit farther, just talking about Mario. You know, it's
so
all up to you,
weird.
Marios. Go for it, Mario. But yeah, this introduces Tatanga as the main villain. He is a alien. I mean, that's really what he is. He's an alien in a spaceship. And it
He
introduces
really is.
Princess Daisy.
It's Daisy. It's funny because Daisy is so much of a character now. But like I remember, just in these Super Mario Land games, it's like, okay. And then I honestly don't think she appeared until like Camelot. I think was like mining characters for like Mario Tennis or Golf or something on N64. I think she appeared in there, but it's just like, I think people just forgot. It's like, oh yeah, Daisy, the not Peach, right? It's funny to think that how she's just now a popular character in her own right when that would almost never really happen, otherwise it's strange.
It was a cool choice for sure. Anytime I can be Daisy over Peach, I usually do. Like in Smash, like I'm not good with Daisy or Peach in Smash because they are super technical.
Yeah.
But I always choose Daisy every time.
I think I definitely prefer Peach. I find Daisy a bit annoying. That voice is something. Anyone who's played Mario Kart Double Dash knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Have you seen the memes going around? And this was a while ago, but like that sort of shows their shouts in Mario Strikers of Peach and Daisy, and it's
Yeah.
just like really borderline sexual.
Yes, it's up there. Yeah. But that's what Mario Strikers relies on. That's why it's like, oh, I remember the one on Wii had those like sort of cries of pain, if you will. And it was just like, oh, wow, I can't believe they let them do this, but awesome.
She's a dommy mommy. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have much more meaningfully to say about the gameplay of this game. I mean, it's kind of just a compressed Super Mario, and while it is set in a different setting, I guess we should say like each of these settings is sort of based on a real life place. You've got ancient Egypt is represented. You've got China, sort of ancient China represented, and Easter Island. Complete with the Maui Easter Island heads, which I think is pretty cool.
Let me tell you how my little kid brain interpreted those, because like one of my first loves was Gradius, and level 3 has the Easter Island head shooting rings at you, and that's the first time I even saw those things in my life. I certainly didn't see them in a book or anything. So when I played Super Mario Land, I was like, oh wait, those are the things from Gradius, right? Like that was my connection point, which is now like silly, but obviously when you're a kid, you make whatever connection you can. I was like, oh wait, those things. And then later, it honestly, it wasn't until I was a teenager when I found out those were like real and not just things that appeared in like video games. But yeah.
They're fascinating to look into, man. Like I didn't learn until I was probably an adult that there's more to them than what's just on the surface. Like they go deeper than that.
Yeah, it's
pretty
very
cool.
there's a very fascinating history of what people. Yeah, I think they're really probably the most fascinating like ancient artifact on Earth to me. I think those are like really really interesting.
Speaking of the backgrounds and the setting, the music is going to reflect that, and we'll talk on that in a second. But one criticism that I did find was that some folks, some reviewers, thought that the backgrounds looked a bit too cluttered on the Game Boy, considering everything going on. And I can see that. My DMG is the screen's a bit too blurred out to play anymore because it's just old hardware, But
Yeah.
I can see how this would be seen as a bit too much going on. Speaking of reception, though, I mean, since we're already there, this sold more than 18 million copies worldwide, which is more than Super Mario Bros. 3, and is the fourth best-selling Game Boy game in general. The main criticism that I saw, which I completely agree with, is the short length. You can get through this in under an hour.
Yeah, it's pretty short, and it's not. I mean, unless you're like super duper bad at shmups, it's really not going to challenge you too much either. If you've played a Mario game before, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. I don't know how long this took me. I want to say like 40 to 45 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I took much longer than that either. I have a random thing because I don't know where else I'm going to fit this in. But like, okay,
Okay.
so like in World 2, right? You start the level and Mario is like under a UFO, like he beamed down from the UFO.
Yeah.
Why is that there? Did he take the UFO to the next level? But like all three stages in World 2 have that. And then like that combined with like, and it's not the cheap sheeps, but just like the fish bones that just pop out of the, water that you can jump on. I just thought that was so deeply strange. I don't know. I never thought about the spaceship when I was a kid, but this time I was like, why is that there? I guess we'll never know.
Being that this was in the 90s, I guess I just thought that the fish bones were a result of acid rain or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Actually, yeah, or the neo environmentalism drilled into me by like Fern Gully or Captain Planet or something made me just think
Right.
acid rain.
Right. Right. It's just subtly getting us propaganda to get us to think about the environment.
Yep,
Oh,
that's
that's
the '90s
probably how
though.
it would be interpreted today.
Yep, probably. Sadly enough.
But I know you wanted to talk about this a lot, and I like the soundtrack as well. So let's end Super Mario Land 1 by talking a little bit about the music. I'm just going to lead in and say I really like it. It's really good.
It's great. It's fantastic. Every track is a winner. Like the shmup level is great. I like that they use that classical piece for the Starman theme.
Oh, yes,
Um,
Offenbach's Can.
is that what it's called? See, I'm shitty with classical music, so I have no idea. I didn't know what it was called. I don't know my classical music too well, but I knew it was not something they made for the game. But yeah, no, I think all the music in this game is top notch. I mean, honestly, imagine a world where Tanaka's music was swapped with Koji Kondo's or something in the original Super Mario Brothers. Now, I know that's like impossible for people to untie those things, but try if you can. Honestly, that would still hit. It really would. It would be the Mario theme forever. I do think so. I think the music in Super Mario Land is of that level.
There's another, speaking of the Starman theme, whenever you go down the warp pipes in this one, where in the original it would be that little octave bass line, in here it's kind of like a comical dun da 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 dun da dun dun da. Like the whole soundtrack to this
Yes.
game is it's so silly, kind of.
It's very silly. Also, I don't want to get too ahead. I love that Kazumi Totaka reprised that for Super Mario Land 2. It's fantastic what he did to it. But like, yeah, it's in Super Mario Land here. I don't know if this will come across, but I laughed out loud. I was looking up that song on YouTube, just listening to some of the music from the game, and someone called that underground theme "fat guy music." I don't know why that hit me so funnily, but it did. I was like, what the hell does that mean?
Oh, you've never seen that joke played where it's like you follow someone around with a tuba and you play that kind of thing?
Oh, like that. Okay.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
it more now. Okay, that makes more sense. But I was like, why did fat guy music? Okay, sure. I mean, look, I'm not thin. I don't hear the dum doo 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 dum after me, but I'm just saying. Okay, now I get it.
The very opening theme is constantly stuck in my head. It's so memorable to me, and like I don't know, the harmonies on it in particular, I just really like it. I think this soundtrack is a slam dunk. It's really good. The credits theme is also really good too, which is probably what I'll put in here, or maybe like segue out with it. But yeah, this is a terrific soundtrack.
Yeah, I think the World 2 song is my favorite. Ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-mm-mm-mm-mm. It's so sunny, it's so bright. It's great even though like fish bones are and acid rain is happening to the environment. It's great. I think it's worth mentioning that Mr. Hip Tanaka here just straight up designed the actual like NES and Game Boy sound hardware. That stuff was his doing. That was his job at Nintendo, as well as making music. So like the sound font, the soundscape of those systems are because of him. So who better than to make music for it.
And he did a killer job.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I know this doesn't feel super satisfying to play in 2024, but I mean, what they did it extremely well. Like this couldn't have turned out better if you gave it to another company at the time, because they literally made the game, the hardware that it's running on.
Yeah.
It's just a good game. One thing that I guess we did gloss over: each of the 4 worlds is going to have a boss, and then the final boss is Tatanga. I don't really have too much to say about it. The shoot 'em up boss Tatanga at the very end, he's going to shoot these large balls at you. You have to shoot those so you don't get hit by them. They turn into smaller balls, and then you just have to kind of shoot him until he's done.
Yeah.
I don't really remember, if I'm being quite honest, too much about the rest of them that that stuck out to me and made me want to talk about them. But I did want to lead off with that because Super Mario on the NES did not, or at least Super Mario Bros. 1 did not have bosses in that way, just Bowser.
I think one of them is like a sphinx, I think, or a lion, I think, maybe, in the first level. I think it's almost like Bowser on the bridge thing, but it's a lion.
Yep. And it's the same mechanic. You just get past them. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's the mechanic for all of them except Tatanga, I believe. You get past them and you step on the lever. It's not an axe this time, it's a lever.
Yeah.
And that throws them into the floor, and you're done.
I think I used the super balls on him. You know what? That's one thing I remember from the first Game Boy commercial is that Mario jumps and then he shoots a super ball at the Sphinx and the Sphinx explodes and then it says like 5,000 points or something. I remember that shot in the commercial. It'd be like, oh, that looks cool. It's really Mario, right? Like I don't know why that stuck in my head. I guess things you remember as a kid, but that made an impression on me, Nintendo. So good job.
Yeah, good job, Nintendo. And if you're listening to this, sponsor me, please. Please, I need to feed my family. I don't really have much more to say about this, man. Are you ready to move on to Super Mario Land 2? You got more to say?
I am. Pretty good game, Super Mario Land, still today. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Let's move on to one of the biggest jumps in quality I've ever seen from 1 to 2. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. It cannot be overstated the jump in quality between these two, because Super Mario Land 2 is one of the best Game Boy games of all time.
Wow. You really feel that way?
I strongly feel that way.
Okay.
I think everything in this game is better than the first.
I think I would agree with you, but like tip-top Game Boy games, huh? I've never really thought about it that way.
Okay, I would put it, it's definitely in the top 10.
Okay.
It's a strong contender for top 5. Maybe not top 3. It's definitely not 1. That's DK94 for me.
Me too.
Yeah, that game is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tetris? I mean, can you count Tetris? You can count Tetris,
it almost feels like cheating, right? I mean, like, I guess you should, right? Since it was so important to the Game Boy, but man, I guess you can.
Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely top 10, maybe top 5, depending on your tastes. But we'll get into the sales here in a minute. This is the same dev team and publisher, obviously, as above, but some of the personnel changed around. The director is now Hiroji Kiyotake, along with Takehiko Hosokawa. Produced, again, by Gunpei Yokoi. And the new composer on the scene is Kazumi Totaka, who you might know from Mario Paint, Super Mario Land 3, which we'll talk about here in a minute, Link's Awakening, he was on that, or they were on that team, and Yoshi's Story.
Luigi's Mansion as well, and Wavery 64 off the top of my head.
Ah, yes. I think there's another 64 game, but oh well.
Yeah.
The release dates on these kind of mirror the first one. Japan got it in October of 92. North America and the UK got it the month after in November. January of 93, it came to the European Union. And once again, the Aussies are bringing up the rear at March of 93.
Sorry, Australia. You guys used to have it rough. Man.
Yeah. We've there are a lot of Aussie folks in the Discords around in our neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they have anything to speak to on this.
Yeah, I wonder if they're old enough to remember this era because I think in recent years, obviously, has gotten way better, but we've gotten a lot more global releases in general. But like back then, woof, I tell you what.
Yeah, maybe friend of the show Adam from Revival and Extinction could speak to this. I think he's a little bit older than I am,
Okay,
but
yeah, then he probably would be able to then, yeah.
the development on this began in November of 91 and lasted almost a year. Kiyotake stated from the start that there was an ambition with this dev team that they wanted this to feel different than the Mario games that have previously come out. What I read was that eventually they kind of had to rein it in, and they made this a little closer to Super Mario World. And
Yeah.
I can see that it doesn't feel quite as good, obviously, but it's closer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Obviously, Mario has a spin jump in this, and there's some other touches. I mean, you have a world map, so yeah, clearly they're taking after Mario World, or really Mario 3 in that instance too, to a degree. But like, yeah, it's definitely the roots, their inspirations are a lot more evident. Whereas just like Super Mario Land, it's like we're gonna take the original Super Mario Brothers as a base.
Most definitely. And how could I forget? I almost did. The community forum for Mario Land 2. We've got two responses for this one. Once again, Keith. Yeah, Keith. Where did I get Keith? Shout out to Keith.
Hey,
How's it going,
Keith,
Keith?
whoever you are.
Mario Land 2, this is from Chris Copleen once again. This is easily one of my favorite games on the Game Boy. By this time, Nintendo and R&D1 had gotten a hold of what made the Game Boy special in its own right, and was starting to make games that felt right at home on the system, were original, and felt connected to the series it bore the name of. It takes almost all of its design cues from Super Mario World, probably the biggest misstep from Mario Land 1, so even though it's quite different, it still feels like Mario. The game is spectacular, even with its difficulty cliff at the end, and is an easy recommend for anyone attempting to discover the Game Boy's library.
Yeah, man, I really didn't know people thought of this as like a top Game Boy game. Honestly, this is it's kind of a surprise for me. I really didn't know.
Is it just because you're not as hot on it, or you just think there's better out there?
I think there's just better out there. I like Super Mario Land 2 a lot, actually. And I just don't think I'd put it in an upper echelon, that's all. But I guess a lot of people do, which is perfectly valid. I totally understand it. I just didn't know other people thought of it that way, that's all. So I'm learning something now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair. We've got one more piece of correspondence. This is the last one of the day. R.I.P. Wario Land. This comes from Dave Jackson from Tales of the Backlog. Shout out to Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Also a good show, just like Retro Hangover.
Great show.
Here's what Dave has to say. Mario Land 2 was my first Mario game, and one of the first games I ever had on my Game Boy along with Pokemon. I loved it as a kid, and I think it was the perfect intro due to its reduced difficulty compared with the console Marios, until Wario's Castle. Even replaying it again 25 plus years later, the regular part of the game is still a breezy fun time, and Wario's Castle is still one of the biggest difficulty spikes ever. Oh, and shout out to Wario Land's initial design in this game. They made him an absolute sicko.
It's
yeah,
sicko
Wario.
Wario.
Wario's a fucked up little guy in this game.
He's so weird. It's so bizarre. It looks like he's literally Frankenstein made with like various parts. It's something.
Well, not to keep the listeners in suspense, let's talk about the premise since we're here and we mentioned Wario.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, Mario is trying to reclaim ownership of his castle as it's been taken over by newcomer Wario, who is described as a Bluto to Mario's Popeye. You go across 6 main stages and a few auxiliary ones to collect the 6 golden coins that will get you into the castle and let you confront Wario. That is the sort of gist of this, and yeah, there is the difficulty. Let's start at the front. The difficulty in this game is easier than I think the NES Mario's and certainly Super Mario World. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's definitely really approachable, especially if you're a younger player.
I would agree with that. And my revisit of this also was like, oh man, this is piss easy. Like I breezed this game in a night. And it's not because like I remembered what I was doing, because like I said, I hadn't played this in like 30 years or whatever. But I just it really didn't put up a whole lot of resistance. It was fun in like a Kirby sort of way where it's not trying to challenge you. It's just fun, and that's all it really needs to be. And I definitely understand Dave's sentiment here, considering his very wrong opinions on Super Mario Brothers 3. That like he got into Mario this way. I totally understand that.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not going to touch the Dave's wrong
I
opinion
had to
thing.
do it, Dave. I'm sorry. I apologize. Love you.
There is a notable difficulty spike in this game whenever you get to the final area, Wario's Castle. I don't remember what I thought about this as a kid. I probably thought it was stupidly hard. I am never the kind of person to brag about being good at a game, but I mean I thought that it was definitely harder, Wario's Castle, than the preceding areas, but I didn't think it was like crushingly difficult.
I didn't think so either. Not back then or now. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a spike. I don't know if I'd call it one of the craziest difficulty spikes ever, like Dave would, but it definitely wants to challenge you at the end. You could say that the game doesn't really prepare you for that kind of difficulty because it doesn't ramp you up or anything because you can go to any world you want. So it's not like they could really make this one really hard and this one really easy, right? It's not like Super Mario World where you're kind of being led along a increasingly more difficult path. But yeah, I don't remember thinking of this as like frustratingly difficult when I was a kid either.
And speaking of leading you along on a path, this game features an overworld, a sort of hub world, and you can choose to attack each of these worlds in whatever order you choose, whichever order you'd like. There are 6 primary areas. We've got the Space Zone, Macro Zone, Turtle Zone, Pumpkin Zone, Mario Zone, and Tree Zone. Did you have a favorite among these? I have a definite favorite among these.
I have a definite favorite, and it is Pumpkin Zone for sure. I love Halloweeny shit. It's some of my favorite motifs. I don't care. Just put pumpkins and spoopy ghosts anywhere. I'm here for it, right? So, and it also, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a bit. It allows Kazumi Totaka to make his deeply, deeply strangest compositions like that he loves to do when he brings in the creep factor. But yeah, it's definitely Pumpkin Zone for me. I'm sorry, I laughed when you said Mario Zone because I've never actually said that out loud and it just sounded so silly. The Mario Zone.
Yeah, it's an offshoot of AutoZone, and it's not around because it didn't do so well anymore.
I would definitely trust Mario and Luigi with my car more than AutoZone.
Yeah, I think they would fix it. I don't think. Yeah, I think they would fix it.
Yeah, I think they're capable. They're men of the people. They do real work.
And they're proud of it. They'll tell you that they work for a living. I think
Mhm.
Mario more so. I think
For sure, absolutely.
I would say my favorite is definitely Mario Zone. Mario Zone, just for folks listening, you enter a giant like toy version of Mario, and the insides are like kind of gears and springs and stuff like that. But I did like Space Zone quite a bit. Space Zone has some of my favorite enemies in this game. They're little piggies that shoot cannonballs out of their noses.
Love it.
I love those little things.
This is a very, very long shot, but do you know the Konami game for Famicom Disk System called Biomiracle Bokute Upa? It stars like a baby. And
No,
like, okay,
no,
I'm
I
sorry.
have no idea.
Okay, I thought maybe you may have seen this game at some point in your life, but because it's so weird. But the pig enemies that shoot the cannons, it's the exact same thing in that game. And I didn't play that game till way later when they came out on like Virtual Console Import or something like that. And I was like, oh wait, those are like the pigs from Mario 2. Sorry, I made like a weird like sprite connection in my mind. Anyway, go on.
No, I don't think no apologies necessary. Yeah, they're cool, and each level is going to have different theming, different music, and in some cases different enemies. Space Zone, you're obviously in a space suit, and you can sort of hold A to just kind of fly.
Yes.
Turtle Zone is all underwater. It's an underwater level. Some areas are sort of like the inside of a ship, but mostly it's underwater. There is I forget which level this is, but you're inside of a whale.
Oh yeah.
For one of them. And you're literally going through the whale's innards.
And again, yeah, I do know that level. It's one of my favorites, if not maybe my favorite that's outside of Pumpkin Zone. And that again plays the creepy Totaka jam, if you want to call it a jam. It's not a jam at all. It's just creepy.
Yeah, there's a lot of really nice creativity. Everything, like, I know I mentioned this in a previous episode, but there's a criticism of calling something charming in gaming analysis like this. And like, yeah, I get it. It's a non-transferable currency. Like, it doesn't spend the same for everybody. But at the same time, there's an element to it where you know it when you see it, and you know exactly what somebody means when they say, "Oh, this is charming," right? And I would describe these worlds as very charming. It's very cute. It's very themed. Each level is themed.
Yeah.
And it's just a real delight, especially coming off of Super Mario Land 1, which, like, those worlds were cool. But they were, Mario, you could hardly tell he was a human. Everything was really cramped and cluttered. Not so here. Everything has more space to breathe. Everything's a little bigger. Mario looks like a real person. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was kind of worried that I would feel the screen crunch on this game, but Nintendo's very careful about designing that obviously did not happen. It's not like you're porting a 16-bit game to a small screen like this, so obviously they can plan around that. But yeah, the Mario sprite being so much bigger than the first one gave it so much more personality just right off the top. And yeah, I agree. These are like some really cool level designs. I like the one with like the hippo statues. I think they put you like in a big bubble for some reason and you could like fly, and that's weird.
Yes.
But then there's like also a whole ground section and water section below you. So like the verticality of it is like really cool. It's not something you often saw in Game Boy games. So to have that kind of like space, it's again taken after Mario World. It's something you would see in Mario World, but not necessarily this. And also, speaking of space, that auto scrolling level that basically takes after Balloon Fight, where you have like the little spiky star things you have to like navigate and fly through, almost like Balloon Trip mode or something. And then it plays that it's practically a house song or something. It plays that really nice song to go along with it, especially as you can do house music on the Game Boy anyway. Maybe it's more disco, but as we know, disco and house are just birth and rebirth of each other. It's just great. A real Nintendo, classic Nintendo shit here, I think, for these level designs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I can't think of the track that you're speaking of, but I'm probably going to insert it as you're talking about it. So hopefully I'll be able to enjoy it after the fact.
It's really good stuff. You'll remember when you hear it.
As far as the gameplay goes, this like we've all said so far, this takes more cues from Super Mario World than it does from anything else. Dre, you mentioned the spin jump. You've got that back here, and it sort of serves two different functions. You can break blocks with it if you're jumping on a block that can be broken, and if you spin jump, it'll crack it. It also gives you a little bit more of a height to your jump. I'm not even going to try and make a joke. It lets you jump high. You can jump good.
Yep.
I don't even know where I was trying to go, man.
You can jump real good. Yeah. Well, we can say that. We can use good words.
Yeah, you'd think by now I'd have gooder ones, but hey. The Super Ball mechanic from Super Mario Land 1, that's gone. You're back to having your fireballs. You get this little feather in your cap, it looks like. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a new power-up in this one, though. Do you want to talk about it?
So it's the rabbit, right? It's the carrot?
The rabbit is,
yeah, where you float real nice. That's fun. You almost float like you do, like as if you're like Peach in Super Mario Brothers 2 USA, but like you have a slow descent, so you can't just float forever, and it doesn't just stop after like 3 seconds like Peach. But it does give you that feel, and that is a lot of fun. I often forget about that until I play the game, and like I said, I had played these since, so I completely forgot about it. It's like, oh yeah, the carrot. That's right. I think nowadays though, they would probably put Mario. Maybe they didn't want to depict it on Game Boy and like actually make like Rabbit Mario. You know what I mean? Like a full like rabbit suit. I think is what they probably would have done if it were on like a console. But this works too. Just give them little ears, little bunny ears.
And what's cool about it too is like you can just get this power up and use it, right? But you can they build some of the levels around this, so it's not just a superfluous power up. It is something that you have to use sometimes. The way it works is like if you hold A as you're jumping, you're going to do that slow descent that Dre mentioned. But you can let go of A to free fall and then press it again, and it's back again. And that's great. That makes certain platforming much easier. It gives you more freedom. It gives you a little bit more expression of movement. And in certain areas, you have to use it. And they will always provide that power up for you if that's the case. So, and they do more of that in Wario Land, which we'll get to in a moment. But I really appreciated this. I loved the bunny ears as a kid because you could cheese a lot of the levels if you had them.
Yeah, for sure you could. It's almost like having the cape or something in Mario World. Yeah, you can't cheese everything, but you can cheese a lot of stuff if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to. And the way that happens, the game is pretty good about, not giving you these power-ups at every waking turn. But after each level, at the end of each level, there are two doors. There's a door on the ground, and there's going to be a door way up high. And generally, to get to the door way up high, you have to do some kind of a platforming, whether it's moving platforms, jumping on stairs that are being like illuminated by the ghosts in the pumpkin level, things like that. It's a little harder to get to. And if you get to it, though, or excuse me, did I say two doors? That's from Super Mario Land 1. I meant to say a bell.
Oh, the bell.
No,
I didn't. No, it is. You did say two doors. No, that is from Super Mario Land 1. And the fact that I like went right along with you, yeah, means that I didn't remember either. Yeah, Super Mario Land 2 has the bell.
Oh, man, we're good at this.
Yeah, I told you we say good words. It's okay. The people will forgive us.
That's true. You can send all your hate mail to @PizzaDinosaur. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
At Pizza Dinosaur on Blue Sky. Yep.
But there's a door on the bottom, and if you go to that door, you win the level. Great. But if you do the platforming to touch the bell up top, you also win the level, but you get to play a little mini game. And it's like there's two of them. There's either a crane mini game where you see a bunch of power-ups going by, power-ups, one-ups, things like that. You press the button, crane goes down, you have a chance to get something. Cool. There's another one that's a bit tougher to describe. I don't know. Do you know how to describe the one with the pigs and the water and the switches?
Oh God. I don't think like I really
it's a lot
do.
To look at.
It's very strange. It almost feels like you're playing it's almost like someone took like an old Game & Watch game and decided to like make a little like, mini game out of it is what it feels like. It is strange. I honestly don't know what to say about it. It's bizarre. I don't know. I don't even remember how you play it. So you like pull the switches and then the pigs like eat the I don't remember. I got to be honest with you.
No worries. So I think there are 4 columns, and linking the columns are going to be horizontal lines.
Oh, that thing.
And the gist of it,
yes.
Yeah, the gist of it is when you hit one of the columns, let's say you hit column 2, there's a little spark that goes up, and that spark is going to take every single turn across those horizontal lines that it can. But as you're choosing which column to press to stop it on, these little pigs are moving around in between them, and those pigs will let you bypass those horizontal lines and just simply keep going up. And at the very top, there are going to be different power-ups. You can get the fire power-up, a mushroom power-up, a bunny power-up, or a life-up. And depending on how your little flare goes up, you're going to get a different one. I know it's a little convoluted to explain. If there's an archetype for this general setup, like this mini game, I just don't know about it, and I wish I did.
Yeah,
it would
this
so much waffling from me.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I've definitely seen this in other games, right? Like I've seen this in other stuff. I just don't know. But the way you described it is basically what it is. Yeah. And then I almost describe it as like, I don't know, weird. What's that game on Price is Right? Like Plinko or something, but not nearly that volatile. Right? You just kind of go up the path, then you land in a slot.
Yeah, but you want to aim for these at the end of every single level because it's a free power up. Now, to be clear, I might be misremembering, but I don't think I am. If you have a bunny power up, for example, and you play this game, one of these two mini games, and you get a mushroom, it's going to revert you back to regular Mario.
Yeah.
So that is a risk that you're taking, but it's otherwise you want to go for this every time. There's really no reason not to.
Yeah, and even if you depower a little bit, honestly, it's worth, like you said, it's worth the risk to get like a, 5-up or whatever's in there, right? So.
So in addition to the different power-ups, each of these worlds, we mentioned they're going to have some different enemies, some different layouts, which, by the way, one of the different layouts that I like quite a bit is in the Mario zone. The gears on the inside will be moving, and you can jump onto them, and it'll kind of, the gears will rotate downward, and it'll, like, if you stay on long enough, you'll fall off. Mm-hmm. But if you stay on for just a little bit, you can kind of get into tighter spaces where you wouldn't be able to jump normally. I don't know. I really like it. But at the end of each of these, to collect your 6 golden coins, you're going to have to fight one of 6 bosses. And then obviously Wario at the end. So these are out of order, and I apologize. Well, there's really no order, but here are the bosses. You've got Big Bird from Sesame Street, of course.
Of course, yeah. Big Bird. It's about time he got what's coming to him.
Yeah, he knows what he's done. He's been silent through everything going on.
Yeah, he knows. He's complicit.
You've got Big Bird. You've got an octopus. You've got Sewer Rat.
Oh,
you've got the 3 little pig heads. You've got a witch. And coming back from the first one, you've got Tatanga.
Yeah, which was kind of strange. He's now just like a basic bitch boss, like in this game. It's like, okay, I guess it's weird, but sure.
Yeah, not at all difficult, if you ask me. To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't have difficulty with any of these bosses, but Tatanga wasn't too bad at all. Actually, I'm just looking through these. I don't think any of these are difficult. I suppose the best case could be the 3 little pig heads, because you have to beat all 3. And the way bosses work in this game is, the classic video game trope. You hit them 3 times and then they're dead. Mm-hmm. But with the 3 little pig heads, you've got to do that 3 times. That's a total of 9 hits. I mean, you could make an argument that that's the hardest one. I don't know.
To me, it was the Sewer Rat. That was the most annoying one, because it crawl on the ceiling and then it go. It was like a little fast, right? I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like super duper hard, but you kind of have to. I would say it's the only one where you have to pay attention to a pattern real good. Otherwise, like, I think they're all kind of pushovers, which is fine. I don't really need this game to, like, challenge me in that way. But, yeah, I would say the Sewer Rat was probably most annoying. But the only one I really remembered offhand was the 3 little pigs. But it shows you that, they're not super memorable bosses in this game, but honestly, it doesn't matter. They don't really need to be.
Right. The memorability comes from the environments and the music. It's not the boss rushes, Mm-mm. I think the thing about the Sewer Rat that makes it tough is it can just climb up onto the ceiling and just fall onto you.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And if you're not ready, that's going to take your life away.
Yeah, that is obnoxious.
By the way, speaking of take your life away, I was trying to find this when we were talking Super Mario Land 1, but I swear in the manual it says the verbiage Mario can die. Like it says the word die.
Ooh.
I swear it does. I couldn't find it though. And I was so excited to come in and be like, yeah, canonically Mario can die, but I can't find it, so I can't verify.
Oh man, because before the most I would say is Mario loses a life, or usually now they say lose a turn.
It says that in there too. It says you'll lose a Mario, which is also very funny.
Okay. You have many stocks of Marios that you could. It's weird to think of them as like literally multiples of Mario, but is it a little funny that like just a weird sicko mode boss guy from like Super Mario Land 2 and Wario became an entire thing unto itself? I mean, maybe that's more of a question for the third game here, but I thought about that while playing this, and I was just like, this fucked up looking guy became an entire thing. I just think that's amazing.
I'm glad that he did, because he is my go-to in Mario Party, Mario Kart. I'm not very good with him in Smash, but like if I can pick Wario, I'm picking Wario.
I love Wario. He's a great character. I like the WarioWare one more with the weird like pink coat, tear off like coat, and then like the blue pants or whatever. I think that's my favorite permutation of Wario.
Oh yeah. I know what you
Hmm.
mean.
Rather than like the classic yellow with the suspenders.
So we mentioned this a few times. Wario makes his debut appearance here. He is going to be the final boss. He's a messed up looking guy. He's kind of just a souped up version of the previous boss fights. I think you have to hit him 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, oh no, I know what happens. You hit him a certain number of times, and then he runs off into the next room, wherein you have to do it all over again, but there's a new gimmick. So, for example, in one of the rooms, Wario gets his own power-up. He gets the bunny ears, and then he can hover up above. You have to try to dodge him whenever he butt pounds, and when he does butt pound, you're going to get like kind of shaken up. You can't move for a moment. So each of these rooms is going to have a gimmick. I'm blanking on the first two. I don't know if you can remember them. I think the first one, it's just he's running back and forth and you have to jump onto him.
Yeah.
And occasionally there will be airborne projectiles that will try and drop on you.
I think that's about all that happens. I don't think they invented the shoulder charge thing until like actually Wario Land. So I don't think he's actually doing that. But he is running back and forth.
Yeah. And you have to do that a few times. But after, I think it's 3 times total, after you beat him 3 or 4 times total, he will actually revert back to Baby Wario, and he cries a little bit and runs off. And you win. You win your castle back. It's a happy ending for Mario. This is, this is another not a very difficult game. There is definitely a difficulty spike within Wario's castle, particularly with the platforming. There is some challenging platforming in here, but I mean, if you've played, Lost Levels, Super Mario World, even Odyssey and some of the newer 3D ones, you should be okay. And the whole game back to front, still not very long. It's a little longer than the first one. Do you remember your time offhand? You said you got through it in one session.
Yeah, I did. I think I spent it was definitely less than 3 hours for sure. But I'll tell you that much. It was probably closer to 2.
Yeah, that's about the same for me. And critics agreed too. Like they noted the short length again, but generally they saw it as a massive improvement over the first one. Cluttered backgrounds were gone, the environments were nice, the platforming felt better in the hands, just all around much better. It sold over 11 million copies and currently sits at the fifth best-selling Game Boy game, just under Super Mario Land 1.
Yeah, I knew it sold a bunch of copies. It definitely got that. Remember how Nintendo used to do what was it called, Player's Choice or whatever? I forget. I don't know if it was called that in Game Boy, but like the golden label with like the thing, hey, this sold a bunch of copies, so buy it now for $10 less because that's a Nintendo discount and always has been. Yeah, I would imagine this game did gangbusters, and it did.
Absolutely. And I mean, well deserved. I think this game is terrific. And one of the reasons that I think it's so terrific, and certainly not the least, even though it is the last, if we're keeping the format similar to Super Mario Land 1, is the music.
Yes.
Dude, I love the music for this game.
Kazumi Totaka's great, man.
Yeah, dude, Totaka's work. I mean, the first thing that I heard him on was Link's Awakening. Like, I know he wasn't the main dude on Link's Awakening, but that soundtrack is just one of my all-time favorites. That actually, now that I'm thinking of it, would be in my top 3 Game Boy games, and it's not number 3 or number 1.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
I adore this soundtrack, dude.
It's so good. All the tracks here, I mean, obviously, Kazumi Totaka, we mentioned his games that he worked on earlier. We forgot to mention Animal Crossing, by the way. He's not the only guy on Animal Crossing, but he's kind of the main architect of that sound. And but I think probably most useful for this conversation would be his stuff like Yoshi's Story and Luigi's Mansion, because they heavily rely on a leitmotif. And so does Super Mario Land 2. And I think in this game, he does it so well, even before I even knew what that word meant back in the day. Like, I noticed it as a kid. I was like, oh, these are takes on the song I heard earlier, oh, that sounds like that other one too, right? Little did I know I was really just hearing, versions of the same song, but I think in this, he does it so well that it almost doesn't even feel like it. Would you agree with that? Because the takes on it are so wild and again, sometimes so creepy. Like when you're in the pumpkin zone or inside of the whale guts, right? It's just like, what the fuck am I listening to? In a good way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So the first part of this, and I'm glad that you mentioned that leitmotif. I'm not trying to actually you here. I would probably just call this just a motif, a motif, rather than a leitmotif because it doesn't really represent anything. I've been out of academia for so long that I just had to get that out there. I'm sorry.
You can unleash it on me. You can well actually me. It's fine. The people will judge you accordingly.
Yeah, they really will. But you hear this, like the first thing that I remember about this game is the athletic theme.
Yeah.
And that's where you hear that motif. But you also hear it in the file select screen. You also hear it as the intro in this, like you were saying, this really creepy intro to the bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, 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 dun.
So creepy. It's weird.
It's awesome, dude. It's so cool. It's so cool. I don't mean to just gush about it, but like I just, this soundtrack is terrific. You had mentioned really liking the what was it, the witches area soundtrack, the pumpkin soundtrack.
Yeah, it's played there. It's played in the whale area too, and that's just like, is this even music? It sounds like one of those, like, again, I don't know how well versed you are in like Animal Crossing or whatever, but it sounds like one of the songs, the creepy ones they play at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. because every song in Animal Crossing on the hour they play a different town tune. It sounds like one of those. So it's like, I've been up too late. You need to go to bed. You're still playing Animal Crossing. This is kind of weird. Just stop. It feels like one of those. But that's got to be maybe my favorite song that he's ever done. It's so delightfully bizarre.
I have actually never played an Animal Crossing, so I don't know.
Okay, yeah, he I don't want to say reprises it, but you could tell that it's him. I mean, I think when I heard one of those the first time, especially in Animal Crossing New Horizons, I think it's the 3 a.m. tune where it's like, oh boy, just go to bed. It's kind of a weird, creepy tune. It's definitely he never lost that, and I'm glad. Even though he doesn't like straight out compose anymore, is more of a supervisor role at Nintendo, and good for him, by the way. His stink, if you will, for lack of a better term, is all over it still.
His stink. Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yep.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is the sound design too. The sound that happens whenever you do your spin jump is so satisfying. I can't remember offhand if that's in any of the NES or SNES Marios, but I love hitting that spin jump just to hear that little sound effect.
There's definitely a spin jump and It's very distinctive spin jump sound in Super Mario World for sure.
I gotcha. Okay. I haven't, I'm trying to go through all of the NES and SNES Marios in order, and I haven't got to the SNES ones yet. And I've only played just a little bit of World in the past, so I don't have a ton of experience there.
I'm going to tell you right now, that is going to be a sound design you will love too. You will gush about sound effects, music, and that just the same. You're in for it.
I can't wait, dude. I really can't. So, I mean, that's kind of Super Mario Land 2. It was a massive improvement over Super Mario Land 1 in most objective measures. I mean, there's no accounting for taste, but the graphics and sound design went up a lot. It was a little bit longer. It was certainly more challenging. You did lose some variety by not having the shmup levels anymore, but it seemed they wanted to take more of an approach akin to Super Mario World, and that's fine. And, the critics agreed it sold great, and that led them into a sequel, the final of the Super Mario Land trilogy, that doesn't even feature Mario as a playable character at all. I am, of course, talking about, depending on where you are in the world, I'm going to introduce it as it was in America, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. So this was the one that I was most surprised at whenever I came back to revisit, because if my memory is correct, outside of the Sega Saturn, this was the first Game Boy game I ever played.
Really? Okay.
I think so. I mean, I know I had all three of these as a kid, and I know I played this and two together, but I think this was the first one. And I've always said, you know, I love this game. I have a soft spot for this game. I really like it. And I replayed it, and it holds up, but I'm not in love with it like I thought I would be. I like it a lot, but I don't love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think my opinion of this game, like I said earlier, I never really played this game before. I never got into the Wario stuff really outside of like Wario Land 4 on Game Boy Advance, a game I really, really enjoy. But at sort of like the Game Boy Wario platformers, not really my thing. Played Wario World also on GameCube, but not these. So this is my first time playing it, and I don't know if I like this game at all. I gotta be real. I don't hate it by any means. I don't even think it's a bad game. I'm just not sure that I really enjoyed playing this.
It's definitely very, very different. And I think whether you like it or dislike it, I think we can all say that it laid the groundwork for some really terrific sequels in the Wario Land franchise.
Yeah, for sure.
At the very least.
It definitely did that. And I guess you have to start somewhere. But ooh, I don't know about this first game, Rickle. There, I slipped in a Rickle. I did it. This is my goal.
There you go. Everybody needs a Rickle now and then, you know? So as far as the developing, the publishing, the directors, and the producers, that's all going to be the same as Super Mario Land 2. It's the returning cast. The composers did get changed around, though. The composers for this game are Ryoji Yoshitomi and Kozue Ishikawa.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know much about either of them, do you?
I don't know them. I don't really know either. They're not the usual Nintendo names of like that I recognize from that era. So maybe they were just kind of doing like maybe they didn't really do music too often at Nintendo, even though they worked there. But yeah, I don't really recognize them.
We'll talk about music and sound in a bit. I really like the way this game sounds, just all over sound effects and music. But yeah, not names that you might be familiar with. This was released, just like the orders that we've seen so far, first in Japan in January of '94. It came to North America 2 months later in March, just 1 month after that in April for the Europeans, and Aussies bringing up the caboose once again, July of 1994.
Sorry, Australia.
They had it rough.
I don't know why I keep apologizing. I'm sorry, but I feel bad retroactively. I do. I always thought we had it bad here in North America with getting Japanese. No, I'm sorry. They had it worse.
Do you think, can we... Never mind.
Okay.
Do you think if we invite one of our Aussie friends onto the show, can we say the word that they say all the time?
Oh, what word is that? I don't know.
Well, hold on. It's not the word.
Okay.
It's the big C word.
Is it like a word I'm allowed to say, Rick, but you cannot say?
God damn it! I'm getting off this train. Change the channel. Change the channel. Speaking of changing the channel, listen to that. That was off the cuff. The commercial for this is awesome.
It's great. It's so good.
I'm gonna play a little bit of the audio for it right here.
You're getting very greedy. You are me, Wario. You're very handsome. You have amazing powers. Plunder and pillage pirates' treasure. Bag a bazillion coins. Buy me a castle bigger than Mario's. Repeat after me. I'm the bad guy in Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, where being bad is good and greed is good. Come and get it on Game Boy, greedy.
It's just Wario being a devious little guy, an unscrupulous little cretin trying to hypnotize you into buying his game so he gets rich, and I love it.
It's fantastic. It is. I remember that commercial, and I don't remember a whole lot of video game commercials from that era. I remember some, but that one I remember like the back of my hand. Maybe because I played it a lot or something. But great commercial, all timer.
Game Boy had some A+ commercials, man. Like the Link's Awakening rap commercial.
Oh God,
sticks in my head forever.
That painful.
The Pokemon one where the bus driver kind of puts them all into a trash compactor.
Surely you remember. Do you remember the original Smash commercial where the mascots are punching each other like the people in suits?
Oh, of course. Of course, that's a classic.
Nintendo had great commercials in general. Yeah. Oh, I remember. Do you remember the Tetris 2 commercial where like people? It was the most 90s thing ever. It's like people would say Tetris 2, and then like an explosion would happen because 1990s, and then like people's hair would get all frizzled and frayed or something. It's like because just saying the words Tetris 2 was so explosive and cool that it just made everyone like freak out. It was weird.
Yeah, now that I'm not 100% sure about.
You got to look that one up. It's a sight.
The premise of this game is quite a bit different, actually. Actually, everything about this game is quite a bit different from Super Mario Land 1 and 2, but the premise is this. After getting kicked out of the castle in the previous game, Wario hears a rumor that a band of pirates known as the Brown Sugar Pirates of Kitchen Island stole a statue of Princess Peach. His plan is he's going to steal it, sell it, and use all the funds to buy his own castle.
Okay.
Totally in character.
Yeah, that sounds about right. When is it ever not a get rich quick scheme with Wario? I mean, that's the whole point of WarioWare, right? I'm going to sell these games that take 6 seconds to beat, and I'm going to get rich now. Like that's what he's been that from the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there is, as you may have guessed from the Brown Sugar Pirates and Kitchen Island, there is a food theme to this game. Every single level and area is going to be food themed.
Did that happen and I did not notice? Everything is food themed?
Yes, sir, because here are the worlds. There are a total of 7. You've got Rice Beach, Mount Teapot. Yeah. I think this one is optional. Sherbet Land. Then you've got Stove Canyon, the SS Teacup, Parsley Woods, and finally Syrup Castle.
You're right.
Well, so I guess food themed isn't quite right. It's more like a culinary theme. You know, you can't eat a stove.
Yeah, I mean, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you could do anything you put your mind to. But you could, yeah. I did think it was strange when I got to the end. It was Syrup Castle. I was like, Syrup Castle? Okay, I didn't really think a whole lot about Rice Beach, but yeah, now that you put them all into order, I was like, yeah, okay, I guess.
You're a syrup guy, huh? Not a syrup guy.
No, syrup for sure. Maybe that's how you say it out west. Syrup. I don't think I've ever said that. Syrup.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I say syrup. Syrup Castle. Maybe it's kind of sitting in the middle. Maybe I'm afraid to commit.
Yeah, commit to the syrup. Syrup Castle, I was like, yeah, that's bizarre, but whatever. Nintendo, I guess, wacky, wonderful world this is. But yeah, I didn't really think about that. They're all culinary themed, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know that I noticed that as a kid. I probably did, but I just didn't like. My sense of humor probably just wasn't developed enough to think it was anything worth noting. But each of these levels, despite having the name of something food related, they're not really going to be food related or kitchen culinary related in their environment. You are still going to be going through just kind of worlds.
Yeah, this isn't Panic Restaurant or something, yeah.
Or Overcooked.
Yeah.
In that sense, I think it's, I don't want to say it's worse than, because I don't think it's bad, but I think it's a bit of a step down from Super Mario Land 2. I like the level design in that game significantly more.
I definitely don't feel like the level design, like in as far as looks go, were that nearly as varied, for sure. And also what doesn't help is that like they feel like the same types of level most of the time too. You know what I mean? It's like here, I guess you can't really do too much if you're going to give Wario that moveset. It's like it's just going to have to be what it is, which is fine. But if the locations aren't too varied and the gameplay isn't too varied, it just kind of one compounds on the other, I think.
That's true. That is true. And with this title, with this entry in particular, they changed the gameplay up quite a bit. So I can see why they wanted to have I don't want to use any derogatory words. The locations are more spacious. Let's say it's space focused rather than I don't know, theme focused.
I would say that's true.
And that's because in this game, speed and platforming are a bit de-emphasized. You are now most encouraged to explore and collect. This is, in some aspects, a collectathon game.
Rick, you want to know what kind of games I don't like?
Tell me, Dre, tell me.
The collectathons. I don't care about collecting your shit in any game at all. I will never, ever care about your shit that's strewn about the level simply because it exists. This obviously applies to like collectathon 3D platformers, which put me right to bed. Like, I don't like those. But this also applies to 2D games like Donkey Kong Country sequels, like 2 and 3, where they just add like so many doodads all over the place. Here are these like a million different currencies, and I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't. Why should I care? Just because it exists? Why should I care? I don't. Give me a reason. And that's also my deal with Wario Land here. There's like, I saw them. There's like locked doors I'm supposed to bring these keys to and shit. I'm like, but why? What does that do for me? I'm not going to do it. And I didn't.
I'm really hit or miss on them. Like when it comes to Spyro, all of the Spyro games, I will collectathon all day with those. With this though, not really. I wasn't too interested. I did go out of my way, if I found a secret passageway, like I would explore it, and I would reasonably explore, but I did not attempt to complete this game in any sense of the word.
There's just no way I could do that. There's also like, there's a lot of things about it that I don't totally understand. So like you get to the end of the level and you have that grid of like the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm like, okay, what are those for? I don't even understand. It's supposed to be some sort of mantle for something, or like I don't know. Maybe the manual tells you. Maybe this is one of those things, and this is something me and Steve complain about on Fine Time when it comes to Nintendo Switch Online. Manuals for these old games are sometimes so key, and they just don't give them to you on Nintendo Switch Online sometimes, and that sucks. So like maybe this is one of those things where it's like maybe if I read that I would know, but it was just like it definitely wasn't apparent from gameplay, and I played the entire thing. So I don't know, man.
Oh, I can explain what that's for. Actually, let's put a pin in that for a second. Let's just talk about how these go as a level.
Okay, sure.
So the gameplay in this is much slower than in the previous games. Wario is quite slow, actually. And the goal is to collect as many coins in each level as you can and make it to the end of the stage. We'll talk about the specifics of how each level plays out in a moment here. But when you get to the end of the stage, you're going to see this like skull door. And you're introduced to this mechanic in the very first level by an enemy doing this. What you have to do is you have to hold up and press B, which will let Wario take out a 10, how do you even say that? 10 coin.
Yeah.
A coin that is worth 10 coins.
Yes.
And you have to feed it into the skull to end the level. And that's how you win. So you do have to constantly be collecting coins. You're never going to be without coins, so I wouldn't worry about not having enough. But you can backtrack the entire level if you need to. But that's how the game ends. And then once the game is over, you will come to a screen where all the coins you collected will get tallied up into your quote-unquote bank. And there is what you mentioned, this little calendar, this smorgasbord of letters. Yeah. Each of those letters corresponds to a treasure. And the way you find treasures, they're hidden throughout the 40 levels in this game. You have to find, 40 levels. You have to find these special doors. They look like more sinister skulls. And the only way to open them is by finding the skull key, which is also hidden in those levels. So sometimes, oftentimes even, that requires finding the door, and then you might find the key at the very end of the level, and you have to backtrack all the way back, open that door with the key, and then you get a special treasure. Those treasures are required to get a certain ending of the game. That is all they contribute to. at the end of the game, each of those treasures are going to give you bonus coins. But if you want to get the quote unquote best ending, you have to have all 15 treasures from the 40 levels.
I just, guys, Nintendo, I'm not gonna do it. Cannot do it. Will not do it. Sorry. I will never see your best ending. Oof, even thinking about doing that just makes me just feel a sense of dread that no thanks. You know, and you talked about Wario. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. I can't tell if I'm getting sick or not. My fucking throat. You talked about the movement on Wario being a lot slower, and oh, I did not like this at all. It wasn't just the speed though. Nothing felt right to me. So like the Wario has this trademark shoulder dash that's introduced in this game, and it doesn't feel right. It feels kind of stubby. It doesn't. It feels a little short. Yeah, you can like dash off a ledge and like do a jump, but that doesn't get you too far. I don't know. I know it's impossible because we have the hindsight of like playing many Wario platformers since, especially even just like a couple years later. And like, I don't know if you ever played Virtual Boy Wario Land. That feels like a million times better than this. And it's like relatively the same kind of deal. I don't know, man. I guess I'm glad they iterated on this fast, but I don't think Wario is fun to control in this game at all.
I can definitely understand that. He's definitely tailored to an exploratory approach and not so much to platforming. You don't get any of the cool spin jumps. There are significantly fewer platforming sections here. This is really, you're just exploring and using your shoulder dash to kill enemies for coin or knock down blocks that let you explore other areas and maybe find secret passages. So if you're not into collectathons and you're really all about the platforming, then yeah, I can absolutely see why somebody would dislike this.
Yeah, that's me, I guess, but see, that's the thing. I think they figured it out later. Again, I hate to keep comparing to later Wario games, but it's like Wario Land 4, again, it has platforming. You have the shoulder dash, but it's snappy. Wario doesn't feel like this like you're controlling a tank anymore. It's not that he's super agile like Mario. He shouldn't feel like Mario because he's not. It's not that I wanted that kind of control scheme, but I definitely didn't want this, and like you said, it's about exploring and it's about these levels, but it's like I think it got old with me really fast. Like you said, like I groaned when you said 40 levels because there really is 40 levels. Oh boy, like I mean, there's only so much like bashing these blocks with a shoulder bash and stuff I can do before I'm like, I really just kind of want this to be over. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to shit on it too much. I don't think this is a bad game. Just for me, ooh, this wasn't it.
I totally get what you mean, man. I think it's a departure. They took a risk here, and they didn't refine it until the sequel, and that's when it started to really come into its own. But this, this is they're trying something new, and yeah, it's quite different. As you're exploring through each of these levels, I mentioned before, you can backtrack indefinitely. So you can go to the end of the level and then backtrack all the way to the beginning if you want to try to collect every coin, kill every enemy to get their coins, find secrets, find treasures, etc. You are timed. I think the time is 300 seconds per level, but you can always go back and replay levels, which this game heavily encourages. As you're going through these levels, you have the opportunity to get 3 different power-ups, and one of them is a real dud if you ask me, but I'd be curious to hear what you think. You can turn into Bull Wario, Dragon Wario, and Jet Wario. And Dragon Wario is the one that I always tried to avoid if I didn't need to use it.
I didn't mind that dragon hat thing. It's a little slow. I think it's weird that the flame is not like automatic. It kind of has to build up to like the dragon breath full length, and then it kind of slowly goes back. It's a little strange, but I don't think I definitely didn't hate it. I didn't avoid it by any means.
Did you have one that you preferred?
I definitely prefer Jet. I mean, it's most fun. It gives you actual movement options in this game that doesn't have any. So it felt like it felt like so fresh, especially, you know what? There is some cool level designs. I won't shit on the game too much for being samey. I like the underwater stuff because one, it's really, really funny to see Wario swim with them little feet. I don't know. It's a really funny animation. And also like you can get up above the water and like do jet stuff and like kind of like fly pretty far and like I said it's just fun to have that kind of movement option in a game that has relatively none. So I did enjoy that, especially paired with the right level.
Oh yeah, dude, I completely agree. Jet Wario is the one to get. Each of these is going to have different powers and abilities though. So for example, Bull Wario, you get this by either eating a garlic pot, which is the equivalent in this game of a mushroom, or a bull pot. That's just it's just the straight direct to Bull Wario, don't cross go, don't collect $200 kind of deal. In this version, your shoulder dash lasts a little longer, and it will also destroy blocks in one hit instead of two. And you also get two special abilities. You can slam the earth with your giant ass to make enemies kind of trip and fall over and get stunned for a sec. And you can also stick to the ceiling because this little bull helmet has horns and it'll let you stick to things. What I liked about this game is it worked around these power-ups really well in the levels. There are several levels with Bull Wario, for example, where there might be conveyor belts. And if you hook yourself onto the bottom, it'll take you all the way across and you can collect coins along the way. Or, maybe there's a giant spiked ball coming at you and you have to jump and stick to the ceiling so it can pass under you. I thought that was really cool.
That is cool. That is cool. I will give the game that. It does have that kind of ingenuity. I feel kind of bad for like kind of shitting on a little bit here, but like it's just not to my taste. I want to stress that. I really do not think this is a bad game. It's just not my thing. Though you talking about power-ups brings me to probably my biggest gripe with the game is that taking damage and becoming small Wario feels really terrible. Like it takes away the entire hook of the game, which is like ramming and dashing and breaking the bricks. I feel like if you can't do that stuff, the game becomes significantly like, okay, yeah, in Mario, there is some stuff you can't do without a power up if you're small Mario. You can't break bricks, for instance, right? But at least small Mario is still Mario. You are not Wario if you're small Wario. And I just don't think that's very fun at all. Maybe I think like later games have like a life meter system or something, so this doesn't happen. But yeah, it felt terrible when you lost your power up in this game, like more terrible than it probably should have been.
That is a big sticking point. Yeah, small Wario can't do the shoulder dash as you mentioned, and because of that, you have no way of destroying blocks. You can't take out enemies without jumping on top of them. It makes everything significantly more challenging. That being said, the game does a pretty good job about putting all of these power-ups around for you. And at the end of every single level, if you finish it as Small Wario, you automatically turn back to Big Wario, which is really useful and necessary considering how these are designed.
Yeah. There is that. They did think about it a little bit, but it just feels so terrible when you lose a power up that it's just like, okay, again, I don't know where I'm going to put this in, but I have to say it. How come you can leave the level? You can go back to the beginning and there's like a door and you can just leave. That's so weird. Like, why is that a thing? What is the benefit of leaving, I guess? I'm not sure why that's in the game. Maybe it's just there just because it's something you can do, I guess.
If I'm thinking like a collector, somebody that's really into collectathons, maybe you're missing, or maybe you're looking for all the treasures and you're just hunting and pecking at levels you've already done, and maybe you figure out, okay, it's not here. I'm closer to the beginning. I'll just go out that way.
Yeah,
maybe.
I guess so. Yeah, that is true. That is something. But a lot of games just have you press start and then press select or something. You automatically leave, which, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's more in universe, if you will, if Wario just leaves through a door. I don't know. It didn't really make any sense to me, but I thought it was an interesting design choice, even if it does, quote unquote, does nothing. So
yeah, I'm with you. just to cover these other two power-ups, Dragon Wario, you lose your ability to do a shoulder dash, but instead you get to shoot flames out of your dragon hat. They can also kill enemies and destroy blocks. And defying all laws of physics, it works underwater.
It sure does, which I love.
It makes me think of that episode of Futurama where they're underwater in Atlantis and Bender lights a cigar and Hermes is like, that just raises further questions.
I love it. No, I love stuff like that. I love that Mario can use fireballs underwater. I love that any video game that just says fuck logic and just does stuff like that is always my favorite. I think in Kirby it doesn't work. I don't think he can do the flame stuff, but he can shoot like bubbles or something. He has like a equivalent, so it's still cute and it still works as a flame. So yeah.
The final power-up is Jet Wario. As we said, it is the OP of the bunch. You walk much faster, you jump higher, and pressing B lets you do a shoulder dash where you're propelled by a jet, and you can literally fly across the level. They use this really cleverly in some areas where you have to traverse long distances. You can get to bonus areas of the stage by jumping up out of the camera view, jetting into the wall, which will then like automatically put you to a higher level. It's clearly the best power up in the game though, because like you said, you get more movement options.
Yeah, movement options. The speed is increased. It's not even really about the speed because I feel like a lot. Again, I want to stress that because a lot of people think like, oh, something's slow moving, then it sucks. I honestly don't feel that way about games. I don't need everything to be fast and snappy, but in this particular game, man, it's just such a breath of air after just you're feeling like you're walking through quicksand for a long time, and then just you know, that jet really perks it up.
I want to talk about the enemies in this game because they're all fresh for this game, and I love them so much. My favorite one is definitely, where is it here? Where is it? Oh, Dee Dee the duck. It's a little duck with a sailor's bandana holding a boomerang, and if you hit them once, they kind of go into a stun, and the stun animation is them like looking into the air and screaming. They look so derpy. I love them so much.
It's really good. I wish I could remember more of them. Yeah, I like that all of them are unique enemies. That really fits. I don't think it would have felt the same if it was like Goombas and Koopa Troopas and stuff. I mean, I guess it could have been fun, but that it lends Wario its own flavor, which is very important. I'm glad the dev team realized that. Yeah, I like them ducks.
Love them ducks. There's also this enemy that you see in the very first level that shows you how to enter the coin into the finish door. It says, the wiki says that it's a mole, and I reject that. It is a penguin. It is so clearly a penguin.
It's a penguin. I never thought the manual says it's a mole.
The Mario wiki does. I'm just trusting the Mario wiki.
It looks like a penguin to me. I get it's Game Boy and everything, but that's a penguin. Okay, we're team hashtag Team Penguin here on PPR. Okay, I'm sorry, that's a penguin.
Yeah, what do you think the P stands for? I mean, pick one of them. Either of them.
I can't say on these airwaves. These are children are listening.
Oh, I hope not. You could do so. Go study. Don't do something productive.
Don't listen to this, kids.
No, the enemies in this game are super cool. There is one enemy that, well, maybe there are a couple, but there's one enemy you'll see throughout the whole game that can't hurt you, called a wandering goom. It'll just walk into you and fall over. It's pretty good. With most of these enemies, you can actually jump on them to put them into stun or put them on their head, and then you can pick them up. And you can throw them into chasms, throw them into piranha plants, throw them into axes that come down, or throw them into other enemies. And that will destroy them, but you don't get coins for that. So it's actually kind of to your detriment to do that.
if you're really going after the cash, and you should, because like Rickle said earlier, you have to have 10 coins to make a little continue spot or like whatever, or get open certain things. So like you do need them coins.
There's also an interesting mechanic in this game with there's a built-in save function. If you find, it kind of looks like what do you call those cow skulls that you see like in like Arizona and Texas?
Yeah, for sure.
It looks like one of those on a stick, and if you find one, they're often hidden in rooms. You can throw a 10 10 coin in it, and it'll save your progress. So then if you die and go back to the level, you'll start right there. I think that's really neat.
That is a really neat thing. I think that is, and that's one of the things that can make a collectathon like worth it, because you're using that currency. Hey, I can do this cool stuff with it. And that is one of those things you can do with the coins, right? So I do appreciate that when they think about like, hey, you need to, it's not just like you're collecting the stuff. You can use it for this, that, and the other thing. So I do think that's neat.
It also makes you reckon with the idea, do you want to lose 10 coins and get a guaranteed save, or do you want to risk it and, quote unquote, get good enough to get to the end of the level?
Yeah. It's kind of, I feel like Shovel Knight borrowed this, no? Kind of? Because you don't have to like hit those like checkpoints, right? But you can if you want.
I'm about to admit something to you. I think you know what's coming. I've never played it.
Don't worry, I'm not like a super duper of Shovel Knight aficionado. I think it's just fine, everybody. It's okay. But that is one thing that game does. So I kind of did think about that when playing Super Mario Land 3.
Before we talk about the reception and music, can we talk about the bosses and how grody and rude all of them look?
They're fantastic. They're disgusting.
Dude, they look, the Devil's Head, which is the boss of Stone Canyon, is this gross looking head with fangs and just the biggest cheek jowls you've ever seen. Wild. He shoots fireballs from his nose at you. And the gimmick to that particular fight, you let the fireball bounce once, then you grab it before it hits the ground again, throw it at the head. Boom. That's one hit. 3 hits, you win. The 3-hit trope is back with this one for all of them except I think the genie, the very last one. But yeah, dude, these guys all look rude. They offend.
They are rude and crude. They are very 90s attitude. Rude, crude 90s attitude. Cowabunga dudes. I think that these are probably the most memorable ones, though, out of everything we talked about today. I think these are actually like the best bosses. I'll say that much.
Oh, definitely. Without a doubt.
Sorry, that's all I had on bosses.
No, you're good. You're good. They each have their own little gimmick. Like there's a ghost boss that will throw out little ghost enemies at you. You have to jump on them and use them to hit the ghost. But the trick is if the ghost touches you, you're frozen in spot with fear. He can then hurt you. So that's a little trick there. The genie is the final boss. When you get to the very final room of Syrup Tower, you find the leader of the Brown Sugar Pirates, who is revealed to be a woman. I mean, I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, it's a lady leader pirate, and she summons a genie to fight you. This fight is really cool because he'll throw fireballs at you, but the only way that you can get up and jump on his head is you have to grab his lamp and throw it. And you have to throw it so it lands upright. So you're going to have to do this a couple times. And when it does, it puffs out a cloud. You jump on the cloud, ride it up, and then you jump on his head. I thought that was really clever.
I thought that was a really fun boss fight. I thought I was doing something quote unquote wrong with the genie lamp because I was like, well, how do I get it to upright? I guess it's just kind of happenstance, right? But as I found out, but yeah, no, that was a really fun boss. Actually, I like the genie sprite. I think it's just like really big. I think that's like kind of my problem with, and again, it's like earlier in the Game Boy's life, so you can only probably do so much. But like, I think that was kind of my problem a bit with like the Mario Land 2 bosses is that they're not too much bigger than like an actual regular enemy. I mean, they are, but they also not really. Yeah. They don't feel imposing. I don't think every boss should be like huge and monstrous. Is that not in my vocabulary today? But yeah, I guess I just like the genie because it was imposing and it was big. I liked it. It felt big too.
Yeah, I like all of these bosses. They're very satisfying to fight. And when you beat them, you get a ton of coins. And by the way, let's talk about the endings because there are technically 6 of them.
Really? Oh my God.
So remember we were talking about the bank. At the end of each level, your money is deposited into your bank, and then you also can get treasure. Well, once Wario defeats the Princess Pirate, she runs away, and Wario brings out the genie. And the genie says, I'll give you a house of your own, a castle of your own. And it depends on how much money and treasure you have. Now, the only way the treasure factors in is that each treasure will give you 2,000, 20,000 coins or something. But I'm not going to list out all these requirements. You all can just go to the Mario Wiki and check them out. But depending on how many coins you have, you'll either get 1 money bag for the birdhouse. That's your new home. 2 money bags for the tree trunk. 3 money bags for the log cabin. 4 money bags for the pagoda.
Jeez.
5 money bags for a castle, and if you get 6 money bags, requirements being 99,999 coins and all 15 treasures, Wario gets his own planet.
Planet Wario?
Yes, sir. It's even got his face on it.
Of course it does. Well, you can't put the W on it because someone might mistake it for Dr. Wily's moon or something like that. You gotta put the Wario face on it.
Oh, no. All of these have the W except for the planet. The planet just has his face.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I obviously got the birdhouse because I didn't do jack shit in this game that I didn't have to. And so I figured that was the case. I knew there was multiple endings, but I didn't know there were 6. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, I got the tree trunk. And what will happen is, I don't know. I know it happens for the first 2 for sure. I don't know about the cabin, pagoda, or castle, but it'll play this little sad sound and Wario will look down and you'll get a little message afterwards to encourage you to try again, to go through the whole game again, to get more money, just to get these quote unquote different endings.
That is, that's, I guess it is cool. I mean, if you do really like the gameplay of this game, that is an incentive, and you like to search for stuff in platformers of this type, then yeah, I can imagine myself as a kid being like, oh man, where's that treasure that will fill the slot that says, E or whatever on the wall, right? But yeah, for me, no thanks, but I do think that's pretty good replay value for a Game Boy game for sure.
Totally. If you're in the pocket for the gameplay, which personally, am I? No, not really. Once and done is good for me, but I did as much searching as I could, and I'm happy with what I got.
Yeah, again, it's the variety for me. I think it was damn near the end of the game before there was an auto-scrolling level, and it felt like such a breath of fresh air that it shouldn't have. It's oh man, the screen is moving by itself. That's new. Finally, after 30 levels, it just, not enough variety for me, I guess.
Let's talk about reception to keep the forum similar. Sold somewhere between 5 and 6 million units worldwide and is the 8th best-selling Game Boy game. Critics noted exactly what we noted. It was easy, but they did mention that the power-ups, the less cluttered backgrounds, and the sprites were all an upgrade from the first 2 games. And I can agree with that. But, again, the gameplay is so different that if you're not into the slower play, this is going to be a real drag.
Yeah, and it definitely was for me. I get why it reviewed well. I didn't know it sold that well, though. Jesus Christ. That's a lot of copies.
I think, you know what? I swear it's probably because of the Super Mario Land tagline. If this was just Wario Land, it would not have been on the eighth best-selling spot.
Yeah, it's kind of the curse of Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World 2. It's they had to put that in there because they weren't really sure a Yoshi game would sell, which it did, I don't know, a disservice, I think, because no other Yoshi game is really like that. But, whatever. That's another conversation. The Wario, Super Mario Land 3, I don't... See, that's something I'm trying to think of right now, going back to my, tweenager brain. If Wario was really a notable character from Super Mario Land 2, or if he became one from Super Mario Land 3, because of course I played the game, so I was oh wait, that's the boss from the other one, they're doing a thing. Okay, cool. Right? But I don't know how mainstream Wario was before this game. It's hard for me to think back then. But I feel like it had to have some notoriety, but I don't think people were beating down Nintendo stores now you got to make a Wario game, because this boss was so cool from the previous one,
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look into the inception of why they decided to choose Wario. Like so many games from this time, like the development history is pretty limited. Or, maybe I just didn't dig hard enough. I don't know. If you're listening and you know the answer, please write in and tell me. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that they did. I'm glad that Wario became his own character. The sequels to this, I haven't played all of them, but from what I have played, they're really good. They just make everything in here better. I know 2 in particular, like the movement feels significantly improved. And I don't know. Have you played any of them?
I have not, but I am going to, because Wario Land 3 is on Nintendo Switch Online. So I am going to give that one a shot at some point, for sure. And like I said, I have played Wario Land 4 on Game Boy Advance. So, yeah.
That's the only one I don't currently own. I've got carts for the first 3.
Wario Land 4 is stupendous. You will love, knowing what I know about your taste, you will love that game.
We'll see. One last thing to talk about. The music.
Yeah.
I love the music in this. It is it's slower, but it's crunchy with like just a little bit of nastiness. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like a 0.8 nastiness. But considering the first 2 were 0 out of 10 nastiness, that's a bit of an increase, right?
Yeah, there's no spoopy stuff because Totaka did not do this. But yeah, it is. It's definitely my least favorite of these 3 as far as the musics. I love saying musics plural. Musics go, but it's not bad by any means. There are some tunes. I really like the ones that were like short loops that were very, I hate saying ambient towards everything because that's not the word I mean, but like, I think you know what I'm trying to say. It was very sparse. Sparse is the word I want. And then short loops. I did like those the most versus like when it was trying to be like a song.
There are some of these levels that will just have like, an NES style like snare drum going like and then like every so often it'll be punctuated by like
yeah, I love those.
It's really neat. It is really neat. It's definitely, you're not going to be humming most of this stuff like you would from Super Mario Lands 1 or 2. Although I will say, the main theme, that dun 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 dun, I do like that quite a bit.
That's good. That is good. That it's like kind of the main tune, if you will. But yeah, no, the ones you described, the weird, the nasty, right? On the nasty scale, the nastier the better. Wait, who said that?
If you want a game with a nasty soundtrack, dude, check out Lisa the Painful. That soundtrack slaps so hard. It kicks.
Nasty as hell? Okay.
Oh yeah, dude. They sampled Doolin's Grunt from Shenmue 2. And that's like the primary beat for a song.
What? Okay. You sold me. You should have told me that a long time ago.
It's incredible. Oh, man, I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't think this episode would go for 2 hours.
You really didn't either. That's fine. I mean, look, there's a lot to discuss within these games. They're classic Nintendo stuff. It's not going to be short. But no, I'm glad we got it all out there.
Absolutely, man. And I think anybody that's a fan of the Mario series or Nintendo or platformers in general, like, give these a play. If nothing else, it'll give you an appreciation of how far we've come. And you'll see the DNA as far back as Super Mario Land 2, because some of that still shows up in platformers today. It's they did a great job. I mean, are all of these like the greatest of all time? No, but I'd recommend each one. I really would.
Yeah, despite my feelings about Wario Land, definitely give it a shot. If that collectathon 2D platformer exploratory thing sounds good to you, it probably will be. It sold over 5 million copies for a reason, not just because it said Super Mario Land 3. But yeah, the first two are definitely Mario experiences that are so super unique and bizarre that they have to kind of be played to be believed, I think.
Yeah, I think that's well said. That is the Super Mario Land series. Give them a play. Special shout out actually to Keith Gasper of The Main Quest. I was on his show talking about Wario Land sometime last year. I had COVID and I didn't know it. I was wondering why I felt miserable that whole session, and it was COVID, it turns out. But,
oh no!
Yeah. So shout out to Keith there. But
I have somehow managed to dodge the Rona. I have no idea how I haven't gotten it, but I feel like I'm just one of the people in the zombie apocalypse who will survive and not turn.
Well, good on you, man. It was no fun.
Okay. I probably just jinxed myself, but hey, what can I say?
It comes for us all.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thank you for sticking around. Now that we're at the end, we always do the plugs here. And Andre, you are a first-time guest on the show. You are one of, I always get this wrong, one of 3 or 4. Is it 3 or 4 hosts?
3.
3. Okay. One of 3 hosts on the Fine Time podcast. It is a sort of, you talk a lot about video games, but it's not exclusively about video games. And it is a raucous fun time. So if you wouldn't mind, what I would love for you to do is to sort of just pitch your show and talk about it a little bit. And if you can think of an episode that would be great for newcomers, recommend it here.
Okay. Well, as Rick said, we do have a raucous time. It's a video game podcast. We do talk a couple other things too here and there, but really, we talk about what we're into. Is whatever we are genuinely playing, that's what we do. We don't just talk about if it happens to be the latest and greatest. We're going to talk about like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? But if I'm also playing some obscure TurboGrafx CD game or whatever, I'm going to talk about that too. Whatever we are into, that's what we talk about. We love to cover current events. We love talking to Nintendo Direct. We love this like Microsoft stuff lately has been like our bread and butter. We have been eating that up. So we do like current news stuff in our own special way. We also just love to play games. We do quiz games with each other about video games. Sometimes you do like a fake little Family Feud thing. I don't know jack shit about Pokemon, so Steve plays like Pokemon real or fake with me sometimes, and I have a 50-50 chance of getting it right, or if it's a real Pokemon or a name he made up. Just silly shit like that, man. We love to have a good time. We love to have a fine time, if you will. So come have a fine time with us.
That's awesome, man. And one cool thing about your show too is that, you know, sometimes not every host is going to be on the show. It allows you guys to keep a consistent schedule without anybody getting too burnt out, and I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah,
we planned that from the ground up. When we decided to do the show together, it's like, okay, we are going to do it this way so we don't burn ourselves out, and I'm glad you picked up on that, because that is exactly why we do it. And I'm glad I think the people who listen to our show really enjoy that too, that you get fresh voices, whether we have guests or even just between the 3 of us. Sometimes the show is all 3 of us. Sometimes it's just Steve and Kevin. Sometimes it's just me and Steve. You know, like it can be any permutation of us 3 plus guests. So I like to keep it fresh that way.
Do you have a recommendation for first-time listeners to check out?
Man, that is a really... You know what? Give me a sec. Let me think real quick, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all. If you want to hear more of me and Dre on your show, you and I talked about our journey of learning Japanese, which obviously not video game related, not really, but we went through it. Nihongo o benkyou shite imasu. We're doing it.
That's like my favorite thing you do, by the way, is when you say Japanese stuff in the most American way possible.
Oh, it sounds terrible, but I love it.
No, it hurts me too much to actually say it that way, even though I know better. You know what's a really good episode of ours? I think, back in November, we did a thing before, like a week before the Game Awards happened, where we did a show where we relitigated all Game of the Year winners in Game Awards history, so from 2014 to present. And then we recorded it before the Game Awards, like I said, so we kind of guessed at what might be nominated for Game of the Year and what would win, and we got pretty close. So, and again, that feels like quote-unquote out of date now, you know what I mean? But honestly, it's still a really good listen. I think me and my guest Trey, we fired on all cylinders. We got all our hot takes out there about these years, and it was just a fun looking back. So, like, if to get used to our show, I think maybe that's a good one. The Game Awards from last year.
Heck yeah. I started listening to that one, but I didn't finish it. Mm-hmm. And I will vouch for that. That is a good episode. An episode that was near and dear to me was you and I forget the names of your co-hosts. I can hear his voice, but okay. You guys talked about the Battle Arena Toshinden movie. Yes. Or is it a TV show?
It was a OAV from like the night. It was just straight to video, like a 45-minute anime, if you will, as they did back then. It was me and Steve. Me and Steve always do when we watch stuff, or whether it's a movie or anime or whatever, it's me and Steve.
Gotcha. Yes, it was. I like that one quite a bit. I'm a huge fan of Battle Arena Toshinden. Always have been, and it was really nice to just hear you talk about it because, you've got to love it despite itself. And it sounds like the movie's the same way.
Yeah, for sure. It's exactly what you think it is. It's so stupid, as is Toshinden in general, and it's great because of that. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that one. That was definitely your best performing of the anime episodes. So I think your opinion is probably in agreement with most people. I'm glad people enjoyed that one.
Yeah, you all love it. You'll love the relitigating of the Game of the Year winners. You'll love it all. I mean, check out Fine Time. It is a great show. I only invite people on whose shows I like, which isn't to say if I don't invite you on, I don't like your show. It's not what I mean. I regret saying this. I regret starting this line of thought.
People know what you mean. People know what you mean. And thanks. I'm glad you enjoy Fine Time. We have a blast putting it together.
Yeah, and you've got some great music too.
Yes, I love the music on our show. I do edit the show myself, and you can tell how proud I am of myself probably when I insert everything. But yeah, I love our stable of music as well. That was very important to me to have that kind of original music voice. Not that there's anything wrong with using video game music. We do that too, but our own music we play on our own show was kind of a core tenet for me. So I'm glad you enjoy that aspect of it as well.
And I think the listeners will too. And if you want to hear more about Fine Time or hear their episodes, check out the links in the description. You'll see all of that in there, as well as to their socials, which I don't think you guys have Instagram, do you?
We do not. We do basically just Twitter. We have a show account. I'm not saying X. And we're trying to get that going on Blue Sky. We all have personal accounts on Blue Sky as well.
Okay, well, you can find Fine Time on Twitter. You can find Dre, if you'd prefer to see his takes, on Twitter and Blue Sky. And you can hang out with them with Dre, I should say, in the Discord. You can find links to our socials, including the Discord, in the episode description underneath of Dre's links as well. There you can hang out with us. You can leave the show a rating or a review, which would be very kind of you to do. You can join the Discord and hang out with a bunch of good folks. It's all a good time. And speaking of reviews, I do have a new one. Some reviews are starting to come in, and I like it. I'm happy about it. And this particular review comes from a community correspondence member that we just heard from today, Mr. 78, all the way from Canada, up north.
Wow, Canada.
The U.S.'s top hat.
Kevin is Canadian on Fine Time as well, and he loves when I say that. By loves, I mean hate.
Is he also Canadian off of Fine Time?
Yes.
Or just on Fine Time?
He is Canadian at all times.
It's important distinction. But here's what 78 says. 5-star review, an excellent show on a wide variety of games. An insightful and informative gaming podcast which nevertheless maintains a friendly conversational tone. Whether you know the game or if it's new to you, the PPR style is sure to be interesting and amusing. The episodes are lengthy, but there are regular breaks and clearly marked topic changes that make it very amenable to listen to in chunks, not to mention the truly deep dives into games that are thoughtfully spread out into multiple installments. If you like thinking about games holistically and earnestly, this is the show for you. This review means a lot to me, by the way, 7-8 if you're listening, and everybody else, because I met 7-8 in another Discord of a podcast that I love very much, Retrograde Amnesia, phenomenal JRPG podcast, which I recommend everybody listen to. And when people like shows like that and then come and say nice things about my show, it makes me just feel extremely good. So 7-8, thank you so much. I'm glad you're in the server.
Yeah, he is a cool cat. I only know him from your server.
And speaking of cool dudes, these two cool dudes today are out of time. It has been a fine time, if you'll pardon the pun, but all fine times must come to a close, and we are closing today. Thanks for sticking around and listening to us talk all about Super Mario Land. I am Rick, I am your host, this is my show, and until next time, I'm signing off. Take care.